this is like a choice point everyone has. Are you going to live a life choosing security or choosing growth? And you're going to have this option regularly at different points in your life. And what you're describing is, I'm going to choose security, stability that happens there. So I am perfectly content making $101,000 a year, being middle management. I have no higher aspirations, and I just get to kind of stick along for 70 straight years to happen there. And there are others of us that are often, you know, Sean, you were mentioning the kids that ask too many questions, who ask the why, are curious about why are we do these things this way? Hey, I have some ideas of some other ways of doing this. Why are we not doing media like as for the New York Times, like on TikTok and Instagram? This is where everyone is right now. If you want the next generation, succession of readers, this is why, you know, mainstream media is dying. Do you want to grab them or not? It's not going to be someone my age. It's going to be someone who's around 25 that brings up this idea. Those people are not thinking about safety and security. They're thinking about, I think I could I want this thing to be the greatest possible thing. And that's why I'm investing my life into this. There's a sense of meaning. There's an ultimate concern there. And so those are the people that you want to hire. They can be annoying because they're going to push and probe you and constantly like they're not going to be content with the way things are. But you have to ask yourself, what do you care more about? Meaning, profundity, and bringing potential into greatness? Or do you just want to keep things as they're going?
I remember several years ago, I hired a new advisor. He was so energetic, like really from the first day I met him, I was like, oh man, I can't wait to have this guy be on my team. And week one of him working with us, he sees our filing cabinet. Now, the filing cabinet was such a meaningless thing in the terms of the operations of this company. We hardly ever used paper files. It was in the rare occasion that somebody wanted to leave a copy of their will with us or something. But like in general, everything was digital anyway. So it was kind of more of a tradition to even have the paper files than it was like really important. And so he goes in there and he notices all of the files are organized by advisor, but not totally. Like some advisors were grouped together. So we'd have John and Steve's clients in one cabinet and then Sean's in his own cabinet, and all kind of like mixed and matched instead of just A to Z every single client. And so the trouble for him is he didn't know who the advisor was necessarily when he was told to go grab, you know, Todd's client file. And so he just takes it upon himself. He's like, obviously this is totally stupid. I'm going to organize them A to Z, like top to bottom instead of by advisor. And every other admin in the company, like, started throwing rocks at him. This was the worst thing you've ever done. You've fucked up the entire system. And it was because he didn't know he didn't stop to ask first, right? He just took it upon himself. But he didn't know what they knew, which was we've divided the work amongst certain groups of people to support these advisors. And we actually have organized it by support person, not by advisor. And so it was a good system. It was unfortunate for him because it turned him off from ever bringing up an idea ever again. Like the backlash was so strong. He was like, I know nothing. I can't even get the paper files correct that y'all don't even use. And he just couldn't ever allow himself to like go back to bringing that curiosity to the table.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple questions that someone asks before they dissent or deviate from how things are doing. One of the questions they ask in their head, especially someone, I'm imagining someone young who works in your company, this energetic person, is they ask, if this idea I have is so great, why hasn't someone done this before? Because I'm not the smartest person in the room. So it's like this very humble question. And then the second question that you ask, before dissenting and deviating, is, am I willing to absorb the friction and potential negative evaluation that's going to come because I know I'm going to be pushing around the status quo a little bit? A lot of people turn off because of the humility question, which is, I don't think I'm smart enough to be asking something no one else has asked before. This might be the dumb question. That's kind of what happened there. Somebody needed to step in and say, I'm going to deconstruct what you did. I love the framework. It was just the wrong thing you were doing. But bring that energy to other tasks. A lot more people end up burning out because they can't handle the friction. They can't deal with the fact is everyone looks at you and says, wait, you're going to create more work for me? I have to learn your new filing system? Like, who are you? Like, who the hell are you? I want to get out of here at 4:30 p.m. and beat traffic. And so this is the inefficiency of a dissenter. They're so valuable, but to be effective as a principled rebel, you have to sell why spending more time for the upfront cost is worth it. I'm going to save you energy, attention, and money down the road.
One of my favorite things to watch at jiu-jitsu is when a new practitioner does not have that humility with their questioning and their curiosity. So, our coach will be teaching a particular move. Okay, I want you to grab his wrist, then put your elbow here and move it in this way. And to someone who has maybe had like a month of training, they may think that they can see a flaw with it, right? Because they're looking through a very narrow lens of what they know and understand. And so occasionally, most of these guys are smart enough to go, that doesn't make sense to me, but I'm just going to do it, all right? Because coach has clearly done this for a while. He's been a black belt for longer than I've been alive. He might know what he's talking about. But every now and then there's one that goes, well, coach, why doesn't he just do this to defend what you're doing? And every time coach goes, okay, try it. Like, you're now in front of the class. See how that doesn't work? All right. Never ask a question again. You're banned from asking questions for 3 months. And I love it. I love it. And sometimes those guys stick with it. A lot of times those guys, they do stop training. But every now and then they go, oh, okay. And it takes a couple times and they learn and they humble themselves and then they don't quit.
So I would guess that when you look at it, the spectrum of a company that has a lack of curiosity, then there's a lot of stagnation there. Nobody's innovating, nobody's growing, nobody's trying new things. On the other end, if you have too much insubordination, you've got chaos. And the best companies have calibrated the right amount of that. Have you seen specific tactics or things that companies do that have it right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the best ways is taking this checklist manifesto that started in surgery and bring it into organizations, which is, okay, we're just, no matter how smart we think we are, we all have a lot of things going on. So just check. Did you check which knee that you're going to be working on today, left or right? Like, did you make sure that like the instruments are, sanitized? Did you make sure that you have enough antiseptic medication in case something goes awry? Because if you have to wait, 5 minutes, that could be, life or death situation. The idea of we go into meetings in workplaces and we just go along with the way it's always been. You have 3 people who eat up 80% of the airtime. Often the boss speaks first as opposed to last on every time someone brings up an idea, which means you're going to get compliance publicly, but you don't know what they actually think because they know. And, Sanger, you brought this up before, is if I agree with the boss and they already state their opinion with great vehement energy, then that's probably the best thing to do, even though I disagree with where it's going there. The best organizations have almost like charts that you have to check. You have to physically acknowledge them and kind of write your initials or write something of how are you going to make sure that a minority voice is going to be heard today? How are you going to make sure that you're not going to rely on unanimous decision-making and people can disagree before you make a decision? Make sure someone offers some disagreement point before you make a decision. You want those people to point out, you don't want the flaws once the product is rolled out. You don't want the flaws after you sign the merger and you realize that that company has a lot of problems that you didn't think about. You want those people bringing it up early. So the best companies have a chart of specific norms that are diverging from harmony and positivity to say, we're focusing on the tasks, not the relationships, but I want to see some disagreement, independent thinking, and autonomy.
I think when you get into meetings and you have companies that are asking those right questions, you're going to get a better result. I mean, there's some what was that AI thing that Google just put out. They obviously didn't ask a lot of questions.
Gemini.
The Gemini. Yeah. I mean, clearly nobody was asking the right questions because it was just giving garbage results. But you gotta ask those. You gotta be open enough to be vulnerable to ask the questions about what would be a different way to do this. A lot of times if I look at solutions, I'll think about, well, what would be the opposite approach? I have one that I'm thinking about, but what would be an opposite approach? And it gets me to kind of break through and think about things differently. Or what would absolutely not work and interestingly enough, a lot of times that thought exercise brings me to another solution. Right. So it's I just think you're right. You got to ask those questions.
What was that automated car, Wayfair? It was.
Oh yeah.
A Wayfair car?
It was
autonomous, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was an autonomous car.
Yeah.
And then it ran over, one out of every 13,000 pedestrians, everyone berserk, and then it disappeared. When in reality, if you compare it to humans, 1 in 13,000 or whatever the number was, it was much better than humans. But the idea that a robotic car is driving around and could kill anybody, there's a good portion of the planet that always gets up in arms. But here's the question that they forgot to ask. When faced with these ethical dilemmas, either you're going to smash into the car in front of you, or you can run over a person on the sidewalk. One of those two things has to happen. What are you going to do? So these are these ethical dilemmas that you have to think through these things when you're creating automation that's going to go on the road. And the thing is, they skipped a lot of these philosophical questions. What you think is, we'll build the machine, it could run, it's going to be fine, it's better than a human, but not thinking about the ambiguity. And I think, Sean, that's what you're kind of really hitting here with these questions, which is we're going to face ambiguity. There's an obstacle and setback waiting for us. We don't know what it's going to be. So let's ask the question, if everything worked exactly as planned, how do we think this will go? If we ends up being in 3 months that a competitor does exactly what we do and then files a lawsuit against us saying that they have property rights, what are we going to do? You need to be thinking about these things. It's called defensive pessimism. You're hoping for the best, but you're bracing for the worst, and you're thinking about plan A, B, C, D, and E. And in the military, they do this all the time. I mean, they always assume of, all right, let's have the backup to the backup to the backup. And I think a lot of organizations get a little bit Enron-ish and think they're the smartest people, and they don't have to worry about what external constraints are going to hit them later.